Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. If you're in the house, let me know. Comment that you're here, ready to get started, ready to learn, ready to improve. Okay, this is going to be one of those videos that if you are a pro velocity banking practitioner, planning on creating content about it, or you already are creating content about it, you might feel a little offended, but this is just a way to improve ourselves, get better as an entire, ecosystem that are teaching this concept, that are trying to educate people because maybe you had a lot of success in it and it worked out great for you. But when it comes to teaching it and getting someone else to comprehend it and then be able to execute it successfully, it's a whole nother ballgame. So I believe it's extremely important that we continuously figure out ways that we can improve how we deliver this message of velocity banking, or increasing the velocity of money to improve someone's finances, to accelerate debt, or to invest and increase income. We have got to be very, very clear as an entire group that there are inherent risks behind this concept, that you can mess up. And if the concept is misrepresented, you could be using the strategy, but maybe not at its highest potential, right? And then if we're not running proper math, okay, and I have messed up multiple times, and we're going to go through my YouTube channel. I'm going to point to you all the different videos where I messed up, how I messed up, and just over the years how I've improved, right? So I don't claim to be a expert on velocity banking, although you could make the argument that I am, based on the amount of time I've put into it, right? So I think by next year I would, claim that status, because I would have put in roughly about 10,000 hours studying the concept, practicing it in my own personal finances, but then helping thousands of people across the country also implement it successfully. And also, I've had some failures, right? I've had some clients not successfully do the concept, or maybe they were started off good, fell off the bandwagon, right? And then we had to work to get back on, maybe made some mistakes along the way. I think these are bound to happen. So it's just extremely important that we just provide that transparency up front, right? And keep moving forward, right? And my YouTube channel is an example of stepping out of your comfort zone, making mistakes, right? Learning from those mistakes and figuring out how to simply improve. So I'm going to actually present something that I haven't done on any of my YouTube videos yet. And if I did, I didn't explain it, right? So this is going to be a very, very unique way of really measuring velocity banking. And it's a bit of a shortcut too, because it provides the evidence for you right up front. So if you're running your own numbers and you're trying to determine, okay, does velocity banking make sense for my situation? Or should I just stick to debt avalanche, debt snowball, making extra payments, like avoid leveraging debt? This right here, I believe, will really, really help you, because it gets right into the nitty gritty and it focuses on the very first month of velocity banking. Based on that result, in comparison to debt snowball or whatever debt we're trying to eliminate, if you pay less interest in the first month, which is the highest month in velocity banking, in comparison to you making an extra payment on top of your normal payment of that debt and you calculate the interest there, the net interest of that month there, if you pay less interest over here on the velocity banking side, then you have an argument that every month thereafter, you would be paying less interest, right? So this really helps you when you're doing velocity banking with a line of credit, such as a credit card, a HELOC, first, second, personal line of credit. Really, really helps you if the rate, the interest rate, is higher than whatever it is that you're trying to pay off. So I'll take it to the whiteboard. I'll show you the example here, and we'll get into that. But first, let me share my screen, right? And let me just do an audio check before I go any further. Comment below if my audio is nice and clear, because I would hate to be talking the whole entire time and then come to find out I messed up. You guys couldn't hear me. So good morning to Mr. Texan in North Carolina. Let's go. Rick, good morning from Texas. Pedro, peace and blessings from Boston. Jenny, good morning from Kentucky. Great morning from San Antonio, Arizona. Santan, Arizona. Okay. I thought it was San Antonio for a second. Good morning, Benjamin. How are we doing? Tanya, good morning from Missouri. Awesome, awesome. Okay, perfect. I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, I am just getting myself set up over here. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so you guys should see this. This is like my back office of my YouTube channel. It's the Creator Studio. And we're going to find a playlist that I put together. I think I did this like a year ago. So I've had it up there for a while. So right here, how can I open this up? No, I don't want to do it like that. Videos. Here we go. No. Let's just do watch on YouTube. All right. So this playlist right here is titled My Worst Most Watched Videos. So I basically compiled all of the videos that, for whatever reason, got the most views on my channel. And what's funny about that, every single one of these videos I either made a mistake on, or in my opinion, with like editing, like for example, this video right here, it says velocity banking basics fundamentals. My editor didn't actually like put the part where I went into the basic fundamentals, and it kind of sounded like a motivational message more than an educational one. So the titling was wrong, the thumbnail was wrong. And so I was okay, that's just going to be an error, right? But for whatever reason, it went viral, right? It just got a whole ton of views. So there's a couple of videos in here, right? Case studies. All of these videos have some kind of a mistake on the numbers or an error. So you could go through this and then you could spend time watching it, and then you can see where I made the error. And then if you go into the comments, right? There's multiple times where I commented or responded back to one of you that commented like, hey, I'm getting a different number. And then I would go back and review it. So let me be the first to say thank you to not only my loyal clients, followers, subscribers that enjoy the material, but I'm also saying thank you to the commenters on YouTube that we would call them haters or naysayers, or they're totally against, everything that I do or, teach on the channel. They think velocity banking is a scam and whatnot. Like, I'm saying thank you to some of those people, because some of them actually will watch the material all the way through, run the numbers themselves, and then they get a different result, and then they post it in the comments, and then I go back and review, and then we'll have a little dialogue. Sometimes ends up being a debate. But I've actually had conversations in the past with people offline, right, off camera, and we'll have a dialogue. We'll go back and forth and run numbers, and then I'll say, yeah, you're right about that, and then here is where you made an error, because this is not how interest is calculated on this particular line of credit. And then ends up being a whole debate that gets away from the matter at hand, which is how is this interest being calculated. Sometimes we end up in a terminology war where it's like, well, simple interest compounded, simple interest daily, daily average interest, amortized interest versus simple interest, they're the same thing. And it's like, from a terminology, yeah, you can make the argument amortization, simple interest compounded are the same thing. Like, let's say you believe that, right? They're the same thing. Amortization interest and simple interest is the same thing, right? From a terminology standpoint, sure, I'll give you that one. I agree too, right? They're the same thing. When actually applied toward a debt, the interest accumulates differently. Like, I don't know another way to present it to those that have, really kind of fought me on this over and over again. Like, if you took an amortization calculator and a simple interest calculator, there's a difference. Like, there's two different calculators. So that must mean something. We're also talking two different terminologies. Amortization, simple interest. But I get what they're saying in terms of when you map it out all the way through, same terms, same payments, you end up paying the same interest. That's also not true when you actually map it out, because of the way the interest is accruing on a simple interest line of credit versus an amortized loan, right? When you have an amortized loan, the interest is already scheduled out. It's already fixed into the loan itself, right? It's already scheduled out, fixed into the loan itself, and the interest is more in the beginning. They don't like the word front loaded. They hate that. So that's just a quick way of, say, content creators like myself and others just saying the interest is front loaded in the beginning, right? I'll give that to them. Okay, no, it's not. Let's just say it's not. But what they'll say is there's more interest in the beginning. Okay, so we're on the same page. We agree that there's more interest that is charged at the beginning of an amortized loan in comparison to a simple interest line of credit, if we're talking the same rate, right? And when we're talking fixed payment over a fixed period of time, your principal application to the loan itself is also has a different effect than when you apply principal on a simple interest line of credit, right? There's a difference, okay? So, in a nutshell, you could go watch me be a clown, mess up, right? It's part of being human. And you'll see how many times I messed up. Be like, dang, Denzel, are you not learning from your mistakes? Hey, maybe one day, right? So I've got 14 videos, and they're not all the same mistakes, but any video that in that playlist that's a case study, there's a numerical error on there. Now, what I've done that's helped me, even when I mess up or make an error on something, what's helped me is when I run people's numbers, I'm already creating a buffer and an error. And then when I compare it to Debt Snowball, I'm giving Debt Snowball the upper hand. Almost every single time in my videos, I give Debt Snowball the upper hand, and I still end up beating it sometimes. So what I mean by that is I'll take it to the whiteboard here for a second before getting into the context. Just going to focus on the four major numbers right here. Let's say I'm dealing with someone that's making $6,400 a month. They're spending $5,000. They cash flow $1,400. That's how I'm illustrating it, right? So I'm going to give that snowball the upper hand, give them the $1,400, right? Now, in reality, when in actual application of velocity banking, I underestimated their cash flow and overestimated expenses, right? So that's typically what I do in a lot of my videos is I'll underestimate their income, I'll overestimate on expenses, and I underestimate on cash flow. And then usually when I compare debt snowball strategies, I will show making extra payments without even the interest, just to like get a quick math to see how long it would take to pay this off without interest, right? And then I say, if I can beat that, no matter what, I'm ahead of Snowball because we didn't add the interest on Snowball's side. I won't be doing that for this case study. I'm going to be as accurate as I possibly can, getting very, 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 very toe-to-toe, like apples to apples examples, right? So even when I make mistakes in my videos, I create room for error, right? A buffer to be mindful of that. And you ought to do the same thing when you're illustrating velocity banking, when you're making videos, or you're just across the table with someone and breaking down the numbers, right? This way they can see the power of the strategy, right? Where you're saying, look, I'm going to give Snowball the upper hand here. We're going to do velocity banking. I'm going to show you this out. And if they still don't get it, I don't like to push it on people. So that's another, mistake I've made over the years with velocity banking is sometimes pushing it or overselling it, right? And you'll notice now with the content, especially with the case studies that I put out, I'm focusing more on how does velocity banking and debt snowball, Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps, basics of finance, how do these things actually come together and work together? Very similar with velocity banking and infinite banking. How do these two strategies actually come together and complement each other instead of me making velocity banking versus infinite banking videos, or why infinite banking is better than velocity banking, or why velocity banking is better than infinite banking, or why velocity banking is better than debt snowball. Like, I really stopped doing that because I saw the net payoff was not enough for me, for my audience, for my clients. Plus, I don't want to misrepresent anything. I don't want to act like I know everything as well. So that's another big transition in terms of, the title of this video is Velocity Banking Mistakes I've Made Over the Years, How to Improve. That's how I am choosing to improve, by no longer really arguing between the two, but really talking about how these two actually come together. That snowball and velocity, how you can use the snowball method, making extra payments, to graduate to velocity banking, and then how you can maximize velocity banking to the point where velocity banking no longer makes sense, and you come right back to snowball and finish out your debt elimination strategy. Oftentimes, that strategy right there, I think, works best when you get to the mortgages. Right? Once we get to someone's mortgage, and if I'm dealing with someone with a very, very low mortgage rate in comparison to our debt tool, right? Typically, before we get to someone's mortgage in their debt elimination strategy, they have a bunch of other debts: cars, student loans, personal loans, credit cards, right? Bunch of other debts. Those debts typically are at higher rates than our debt tool, our line of credit. So it's an easy, like, hey, all we're doing is consolidating debt from there to here and paying less interest, creating more cash flow, remaining liquid, right? And that's going to propel us. That's going to buy us 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. It's going to create this gap from debt to debt to debt to debt to debt. And by the time we get to the mortgage, maybe we're a year ahead of Snowball, or maybe a year and a half ahead of Snowball. Great. So now we have the lead. Awesome. We have a lead. We don't want to lose that lead by forcing velocity banking to work in our favor. Let me give you a prime example here, right? Just focus right here. Don't focus on these numbers. Focus right here. Let's say in 2020, when interest rates were super low and you had a HELOC at a 3.5% rate. And during that time, you had a car at 5% and personal loans at 9% and credit cards at 23 to 26%. So you had all these debts, right? And then you come across velocity banking in 2020, and then you find a debt tool, and you're like, oh shoot, it's a really low rate, right? Awesome. And you now are like, yeah, this makes total sense. Let me move 5 into there and 9 into there and 23 to 26 into there. Okay, great. And let's just say it takes you from 2020 to 2022 to eliminate these debts. You increase cash flow, you save money, you went faster than debt snowball. You got about a year head start, right? You got about a 1 year head start on snowball. We ran the math. Great. Awesome. Now here's the problem. From 2020 to 2022, what happened to this? It doubled. So let's just say in 2022, your rate went from 3.5% and now it's at 7. Okay. And let's just say in 2020, you had a mortgage of 4.5%, right? So you had a relatively low rate mortgage. Well, what also happened to mortgages from 2020 to 2022? And then now in 2023, they're around that number, right? Like 6-7+% now, right? I actually wrote out some current rates right now of what we're dealing with in the United States today. Right? These are like the averages of what you would get on a new car, used car, HELOC, loans, mortgage, if you were to finance any of these debts. Okay? So now, let's say it's 2023, right? Let's go 2023. 2022 was at 7. Now it's at 8.5%. The current prime rate today is 8.5%. It's October 2023. That is prime rate right now. So HELOCs are typically tied to, prime, and they'll do like prime minus or prime plus. So let's just say you're at prime. 8.5% on your HELOC. You paid off all your debt. And now you're like, okay, now it's time to attack the mortgage. And you know how to do velocity banking. And maybe you jumped the gun because you didn't run the numbers. And so now you're going to use an 8.5% rate to pay off your 4.5% rate. Let's just say that was a second lien HELOC, right? Because you have a first lien mortgage. That's a second lien HELOC. What could you do in this situation? Well, you can easily just switch banks. So I know it's terrible. You could switch banks so that you don't pay this. So many of us forget to do that when we're running the illustrations for people. If you're on the teaching and education side, forget to talk about that. Like, hey, client, before we use this, I'm pretty sure that we can go to another bank, compete, shop around, and maybe find an intro rate of 4.99% or 5.99% for the first year, 6 months, 12 months. And if that were the case, well, now you just cut the rate tremendously, but then you're like, well, Denzel is still higher than 5.5%, right? True. But remember, amortization loan, more of the interest is at the beginning of that loan. And if we're only 3 years into the mortgage, right? Let's say they acquired it in maybe 2019 or something, 2020. So only 3 years into it. No extra payments. All their cash flow went towards here. Now they have all this cash flow. What should they do? Run debt snowball, right? With all that extra cash flow, run the math on an amortization schedule, right? They would get the amortization schedule from their mortgage institution on the 2023 with 27 years left, whatever the rate is, the payment, issue it out, and then put extra payments of whatever their cash flow is. We get a number. We then need to compare it to velocity banking, right? And we would map that out as well. Now, here's the thing. If we stay here and then the rate goes up on the HELOC, understand any time that the interest rate that you're using to do velocity banking is higher than whatever it is that you're paying off, just because it's an amortized debt. Now, this is the part of improving on for velocity banking teachers and educators, even myself. I'm only calling out myself today, right? I'm only calling out myself today. Where I did not do enough or spend enough time educating on a case study is that process of when we turn off velocity banking, right? So my point is, whenever the rate of your line of credit is higher than your amortized loan rate that you're trying to pay off, eventually, this rate is going to be at a lesser cost because you've canceled and eliminated the interest. It's gone. It's not coming back. Versus in a line of credit, interest will always accrue. It will always accrue. So you can end up paying more interest in a line of credit if you keep stuffing debt inside of it. So my point is, if you already have a 1-year head start on Snowball, and doing velocity banking will get you another year head start, don't lose the gap. Just turn it off, right? So if you got 1 year locked in at a 4.99 rate, you're going to do a whole lot of damage, right? In that first year of the mortgage, right? And then let's say the rate goes back to 8.5%, right? Or because you switched and went to a different bank, maybe it's prime minus 1%, so maybe it goes to like 7.5%. Okay? We want to pay attention to how much interest we pay per month and compare it to our debt snowball timeline of where we're at, right? And remember, when you're doing debt snowball, you're 1 year behind. So you have to show making payments 1 year into it. So by 2024, right, is when you would start making those extra payments because you're still working on other debts being eliminated. So you want to make sure you do that so you don't mess yourself up because you're already 1 year ahead, right? But even being 1 year behind, they could catch up if we're not careful with our borrowing costs. So remember, it's okay if velocity banking doesn't work. It's okay. You've got nothing to prove to anyone. This is something I had to learn. If you're being attacked by someone or your family members or they're, calling you stupid or whatever. Oh, that's crazy. That's a scam. Like, dude, you've got nothing to prove. Do you run your numbers, get your results, have something to show? When they ask, you show it. They don't ask. No need to have a bickering back and forth battle, right? This is like in my own family, like no one's really doing velocity banking, right? It's just me, right? My mom, my fiance, my immediate close, but like other sibling, other extended family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, none of them, right? So, and I'm not trying to force it on them, right? When it comes to friends of mine that I have, like I don't force velocity banking on any of my friends or anything like that. If they come to me, they want my help, I'm gonna pour, right? They don't come and ask you or anything. Hey, got nothing to prove, right? So, is that clear? We got 66 people in the house. 20 people liked the video so far. I appreciate that. You're getting value. If you've gotten value from this so far, just building a framework of setting proper expectations for velocity banking, and you got value so far, go ahead and hit the like button that you're enjoying this, right? And let me just shout out a couple more people here. Elizabeth, good morning. Baron, hello. Mark, hello. Karen, hello. Jennifer, hello. Wink. Matunda, hello. Yamada. Rick says yes. So, good. Great. Thank you. What else did I want to cover? Okay. So, here's just like, this will be like a short clip. Shout out to William Lee. William Lee is a YouTuber that did a video titled Velocity Banking is a Scam. He used one of Christy Van's case studies and he proved her wrong. Okay. Now, I watched his video in detail. Then I went to Christy Van's video, watched her video in detail. And then I made a case study on her numbers. And then I brought up points from both sides that they missed. And because of my own, say, emotions getting in the way, I'm over here trying to, root for Christy and, back her up and everything. So to my demise, I did not run the numbers all the way through on that particular case study that I did. And then I made a short clip out of a live stream, posted that. So there's 2 more videos that I made mistakes on, and it's specifically regarding William Lee and Christy Van. The source is Christy Van's case study numbers, had to do with a zero cash flow situation, doing velocity banking with a credit card using convenience checks without a 0% interest tied to it. And if you look closely at that video, the video stops once she gets to a certain point, but there was still debt on the credit card itself. There was still debt on there. So technically, the debt did not get paid off in the time that she showed, right? And then if you watch William Lee's video, he illustrates all the debts being done in about 13 months, I believe it was. Christy Van showed 10 months. He showed 13 months. If you're doing velocity banking, you're basically going to get the same result, like very similar. There's maybe a 30-day gap where velocity banking is ahead, so maybe 12 months as opposed to 13. Some other people would argue that you actually paid more interest by doing what Christy illustrated, and they could potentially be right based on whatever the rate of that credit card is, which I think she did show the rate. It was like 20 plus something %. And depending on how the convenience fee worked, she illustrated 4%. We could have got a lower rate. So it was like neck and neck. So where my brain turned off was when the video stopped. So I just showed, like, in terms of her math was correct. Like everybody's math was correct and incorrect at the same time, because of the way, like, she was overestimating on the balance transfer fee. It could have been less. She could have used a 0% credit card. And so it felt like a situation where we were forcing velocity banking to work. And then I didn't do my homework enough, or I didn't ask her enough questions, and ended up making more mistakes in my own video. And I went back and I was like, oh, dang, that's right. Like, when we get to the 10th month, what happens with velocity banking is, once the balance gets to the same amount as someone's income, you can make the argument that technically it's like done. Like, the line of credit is paid off, because at that point you're not paying anything in interest. You're literally just servicing the debt. It's almost like carrying a balance on a credit card from month to month. That wasn't explained in the video. So that's where the disconnect, kind of happened. All in all, mistake on my part, mistake on Christy's part. Thank you, William, for posting the video, going into it. You definitely, and I even commented on that particular video, said, hey, I made a mistake. I'm owning up to it. That's what it is. Made a mistake, putting it into my playlist of mistakes. We keep it going. Like, I don't hide my mistakes. Like, I don't try to bury them. And no, I'm going to show you guys all my mistakes, because I'm also, in everything that I'm doing, I'm also creating a pathway for people to succeed in their endeavors, in their business, if they want to create content online. And I'm just showing them, here's what to expect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. You might make enemies along the way. You'll make good allies, good relationships. Relationships might end. Seasons will pass, things like that. It's part of being a business owner. And if you can get past all that adversity, you're going to come out victorious. And even your enemies will respect you, right? So in this particular case, ton of respect for William Lee and his YouTube channel and what he's teaching, what he's educating. He still believes velocity banking is a scam. Like, that's his kind of conclusion. And I'm like, it's totally fine. Awesome. Let's figure out where we can find common ground, right? I'm still calling him out for a friendly dialogue, conversational, doesn't even have to be a debate, just be a dialogue, right? He claims to be the expert. He's the guy that went to college, so I don't doubt any of that, okay? So he's the mathematician, and he does not agree with really any scenario of velocity banking, right? Which is totally fine. But he did make a video and then chose not to ever, I guess, talk about it ever again. So it kind of feels like, okay, maybe you're just doing it for clicks. Hopefully that's not the case. And that's why I said, hey, let's have a discussion. You're now entering into my world, right, of velocity banking. Let's have a good discussion where we can look at the good, the bad, the ugly, set proper expectations, help people make better decisions with their personal finances, right? So, shout out to this person right here. Can you actually show how you get a year ahead of Snowball with velocity banking using the same cash flow on both sides? Without that, it's just a statement and not proof. You're absolutely right. So shout out to Cheryl in the house. This is a person who is a major critic of velocity banking, runs the math, right? Challenges almost every case study I ever put out, totally against velocity banking. So again, I'm someone that I'm giving praise to these people. I'm like, good. Like, I also teach Snowball. I have tons of clients where we're not doing velocity banking. We're just making extra payments with that. So I'm both sides. Hey, velocity banking's too hard, too confusing. You're just not getting it. I don't want to force it on your personal finances. You could end up making a worse decision or making more mistakes than intended, right? The concept of increasing the velocity of money, me personally, I think it's definitely only for a select group of people. Does everyone have the potential to do it? Sure, absolutely. If you're only looking at velocity banking one dimensional, right? So to Cheryl's point, she's only looking at it from one dimension, which is who goes faster, who pays debt off faster, right? That's just one way of looking at the concept itself. Whereas velocity banking can be multi-dimensional in terms of the payoff, what I get as a result of using this strategy versus not doing it, right? So, giving love, shout out to all those people that are totally against the concept. Now, let's go into a strategy here, a case study. We're going to make some comparisons, and I'll share my screen. We'll look at the board, and if I make an error, point it out, right? Run the math with me. So here are the four major numbers. Case study, $6,400 a month. This is accurate numbers, not overestimating or underestimating. It's about as accurate as I can get with this, right? Very, 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 very accurate. So $6,400 is the income. Expenses are $5,000. Total debt is $361K. Leaves us a cash flow of $1,400 a month. These are the just rates that I pulled off Google. So if these are wrong, that means Google's wrong. Okay? And I pulled it from reputable sites like Market Watch, Money Geek, pulled it from pretty decent reputable sites. If you were to get a new car today in 2023, that's going to be your average financing rate. Used car, average financing rate. HELOCs, this is the average, right? Loans, if you have a 720 to 850, loan rates are around here, according to the website. I actually don't agree with that. I think you could probably get much better rate than that. And then mortgages are around 7% right now, right? I know this in Florida. I got pre-approved for an 8% rate. So that's pretty, accurate. And then the average car price today is like $48,000, right? So here's an example of a car financed $42,000. So we're at the top of the loan, $42,000. $633.89 is the payment, 7% is the interest rate. It's a 7-year note, right? If you do the math, the total amount of interest is $11,246.97. Let me share my screen real quick so I can show you the amortization schedule of the debt itself so that we can all be on the same page. So this is what I put. This is an amortization schedule using Excel. 42,000. Hopefully you guys can see this nice and clear. I'll just zoom in real good. So 42,000, 7%, 7 years. That's the payment. $633.89. Okay. Let me put this at 0 real quick. So total amount of interest if I do nothing and just make the normal $633.89 payment. If I just do that, then this is how much interest I'll pay over the life of that particular loan, right? Over the life of it. Now, if I do extra payments of $1,400 a month, right? Then I'm only going to pay $2,883.87, right? $2,883.87. Okay? So you would write that down and say, all right, here is that snowball results. making extra payments, this thing would be paid off in 23 months, right? So 23 months, right? You could, about 100, 23 months done. So I'll write that down, 23 months. Instead of paying $11,246.97 in interest, we pay $2,883.87 in interest. The first month, we pay $245 in interest in the first month, right? So when we're typically doing that snowball, right, we make our normal payment to our debt of, say, $633.89, and then it's typically towards the end of a month that someone would have their cash flow after they paid their bills and stuff, and they say, okay, here's my leftover money, and then they'll make an extra principal payment at that point in time. So the primary difference between making extra payments and velocity banking is the timing of when we're hitting the debt. It's the timing behind it, right? And that's what's going to create a gap between when this actually gets paid off. Now, depending on the rate of your line of credit, this is where I believe we can make improvements before we even do the concept. If we did enough homework, right? And this is where Cheryl would probably disagree with me, is that when we're looking at debt tools of a line of credit, and I showed you the averages of the rates right now. So for a HELOC, 8.34% to about 9.71%, and they go even higher. Like I have some people that sent me their numbers with a 10.5, 11.5, 12% interest rate, and I say, hey, you really are, you're forcing this thing to work. You really are. There's plenty of HELOCs out there where we can get a much lower rate than that car loan of 7%. So in my opinion, if I was going to do velocity banking on this $42,000 debt, I would first try to find a line of credit and a credit card, get approved at a lower rate than that 7%. Now, if Cheryl's still with me, right? Cheryl's still with me, right? Because she can be very combative, right? You can tell in the way she types. Would you agree? And everyone else can participate in this for the 73 people in the house here listening. Would you agree that if I have a lower rate line of credit than whatever debt I'm paying off, am I not going to go faster if all I did was make extra payments? So if you have a 9% interest rate debt and I have a 6% interest rate line of credit, and I move my 9% to the 6% and just make extra payments, no velocity banking, who goes faster? The 9% or the 6%? The 6%. If you guys agree with that, just put a yes or no right now. Okay? Just put a yes or no. I'll see a couple of them come in. Now, where velocity banking can get a little tricky, or we try to, force it, is when the rate is higher than whatever it is that we're paying off. Now, sometimes, even when the rate is higher, what we actually have to look at is the interest cost. Even though I have a higher rate, what did I actually pay in net interest in the first month? Because if your first month interest is less than first month's interest on an extra payment to a particular debt, you're technically going faster. You absolutely are, right? So now, this is a good point here that Cheryl makes, is she says refinancing a loan to a lower rate is not velocity banking. It's just normal debt restructuring. Now, if you reside in the Dave Ramsey world, you're not supposed to restructure or refinance debt. That is a rule that many of the other content creators that came out of the Dave Ramsey Institute of Financial Coaching and being master financial coaches, and then they created YouTube channels, they don't educate their clients on restructuring of debt. So therefore, Cheryl, if there's a majority of people not teaching how to actually restructure debt properly, guess what? People are going to do it wrong. They're going to do it wrong. You see so many people refinance their mortgages thinking that they're going to save money by going to a lower rate. You actually don't. They're paying thousands of dollars in closing costs that gets added to the loan at that lower rate, and then they reset the clock, Cheryl. They reset the clock. So you go back to paying more interest in the beginning of that loan. So you got to look at it from the perspective of the banks, right? So with a lot less work can go, so the velocity banking element of funneling cash flow through the line of credit, very little to interest cost reduction or payoff speed, with a lot less work, can go faster by just refinancing to the line of credit. So that's where we disagree, right? Because if all you do is refinance, we can use the word refinance. It's technically not a refinance, right? A refinance means that you're moving from one amortized loan to another, and the bank or the institution is doing it for you, right? They're doing it for you. With a line of credit, if you have a line of credit, you're actually manually moving money out of that line of credit. You're making a withdrawal to your checking account, and then you're making a lump sum payment to pay off your loan in full. Done. Pay it off in full. Now, you have the same debt amount. It's now on the line of credit at this lower interest rate. Let's just say went from a higher to a lower, and you make extra payments each and every month. You're obviously going to go faster. To your point, you're saying less work, right? Whatever, that's a personal preference. To me, it's literally nothing for me to just, when I get a paycheck, I just move it into my line of credit. And then when I have bills, money gets moved out to pay those bills. I'm going to pay less interest than you. On a day-to-day basis, I'm going to pay less interest than the person that waits to make that extra $1,400 payment on top of the $633.89, right? So with that, that's just a big point there. Went over the situation here. Here's an example of what we could do with velocity banking. Here's the cool part. It's a lot of different things that we can do to handle this particular car loan that we're dealing with, right? A lot of different stuff. So this is just an example of eliminating debt. Let's just say we have a HELOC at a 9.71% interest rate. So that's 2.71% higher than the 7% car loan. So we have to figure out, does it make sense for me to do that? Or am I forcing the concept to work in my favor? Am I forcing it? Could I have gotten a better rate? Absolutely. There's credit lines today with intro rates of under 7%, and we can have a locked in rate for about a year, 6 months at the least, but a year being the longest. So we can actually have a lower rate. But let's just use the 9.71%. So we need to run the math. 42,000, meaning I paid off this car in full and I rerouted it to the HELOC. Got a $100,000 HELOC, and let's just say I paid off my car in full, threw it in there. I no longer have a $633.89 payment. Those dollars are now going to be going into the line itself, right? So that would mean my $5,000 cost of living would reduce by that payment, and then there would be a difference of interest, right? And we already saw that in the first month of doing Snowball, you're going to pay $245 in the first month after making your normal payment plus an extra $1,400 payment. These are two separate payments at two separate times that are happening. Now, what I illustrated on the amortization schedule was us making that payment of the $633.89 and the $1,400 on October 14th, right? Doing the same thing over here, October 14th, because that's today's date. Let's say we paid off the car in full, so now I got $42,000 sitting in my home equity line of credit. 9.71%, $4,078.20 in 1 year, right? That's 1 year's worth of interest if all I do is make interest-only payments, right? So $4,078.20 divided by 12. So if I make interest-only payments of $339.85, guess what? You're paying way more interest than who? The debt snowballer that just made extra payments, and they only ended up paying $2,883.87 over a 23-month period. That's a 12-month period at $4,078.20. So what do we need to do, guys? We can't just make extra payments on the line of credit. It's not going to do enough damage. Can't just do that. Right? That's not good. So I'm giving you the breakdown of the days that money goes in and money comes out. Of that $6,400, I'm showing a bi-weekly income. So on October 13th is a Friday, so bi-weekly, paid every other Friday. So 13th was a payday. So I'm going to show $3,200 paycheck plus we have $1,400, right? Because we had $1,400 over here. That was an extra payment. So we can say $1,400 was maybe September's cash flow. We could, just make that assumption. So over here, October, or we could say October's cash flow, $1,400. Make it easy, right? So $1,400 here got spent. With Velocity Banking, the $1,400 didn't get spent yet. Why? Because I used the line of credit, the available credit limit there. So I used that $42,000. I still have my $1,400, and I still have my $3,200, right, of my paycheck that I got on October 13th, right? Here's the layout. My mortgage is due on the 1st, 2015. The card payment, let's just say it was due on the 8th of the month. And we got student loan payments. And I just made it easy. They're actually separate days. But I'm just making it easier for us to comprehend this. So due on the 15th, all three payments all together is $924. And then when you minus this from the 5, you're going to be left with that. And we have $1,444 of bills, of which $400 has to be used on cash, right? Meaning it has to come from a debit checking account. And let's just say $400 getting spent on the 15th of every month. And then we have a credit card. This is key. Can't just have a HELOC and not the credit card. You need the credit card as well. So we have a credit card. That gives us 2% cashback rewards, where we will run $1,044 worth of bills. 2%, right around $20.88. Now, here's a point that Cheryl brings up and some of the other folks is they say, well, Denzel, I could be doing the credit card leveraging thing as well, where I run my bills through a credit card and just and make the extra payments. Now, again, any time you leverage credit, you're now in my world, whether you like it or not. So that's why if you're a Dave Ramsey follower, you cannot use debt. You have to understand people's philosophy. You can't step into you can't pull from my world and bring it in your world and then call it not velocity banking. No, you're leveraging. You're increasing your velocity of money. Right? We can argue terms. We can argue terms all you want, right? But from just practically speaking here, if you pull from the world of leverage and bring it over into your debt snowball space, sorry about that. You bring it over into your debt snowball extra payment space, you're leveraging now. Even if it's just a credit card, you're leveraging. So you got to give us some credit for that, because that can improve your debt elimination situation. So because if we're saying only Dave Ramsey, no debt, this is a scam. Leveraging is not you can't leverage debt and you can't refinance and restructure and do all of that is a form of leverage. You're now pulling from our world. That's kind of like the atheist that pulls from, God, morality to try to prove their point that God doesn't exist. And it's like, dude, you're stealing from God to prove that God doesn't exist. So it's like where's your argument, right? Kind of falls apart. So that's kind of like another thing where there's a separation. Now, I'll leave that. I'll let you sit with that. If you don't agree with it, totally fine. Again, I'm trying to make content that actually brings these two together. So I'm saying, hey, I'm going to pull from your world and I'm going to pull from my world of leverage. Can we actually come together, Cheryl? Can we actually combine the two strategies and actually do better than velocity by itself and that snowball by itself? What if these two came together and boom, and we go faster? Okay? And then guess what, Cheryl? You want to make videos? You think you can do better than me? Come on, make some videos. I'm calling you out. All right? You're pretty good with numbers. Make some videos. Educate some people. All right? Well, just stay in the comments. Play on the field. Get in the game. So, $42,000. We have this potential cost of $4,078.20. It's October 14th. So 42,000 came out that same exact day. I'm going to dump my income, $3,200, and I'm going to dump my cash flow, $1,400 all together. Brings the balance from 42 down to 37,400. You times it by 9.71%, you divide it by 365, you should get $9.94 for that day. One whole day, we pay $9.94. Okay? So, on the 15th, one day later, we have expenses, $924 and $400. It's going to bring my balance up to $38,724. Times that by 9.71%, divide by 365. You're going to get $10.30. Right? $10.30 for however long I owe $38,724. Okay? Now, between October 15th and October 27th, that's our next paycheck that would come in. I get paid on the 27th. So from the 15th to the 27th is a 12-day gap. You can't count the day of the 27th, right? Because I'm going to pay a different cost on the 27th. So I counted 12 days times $10.30, that's $123.60. Understand this. The way this particular HELOC works, it's an interest-only payment HELOC. So the interest is not going to be charged until the due date of the 3rd. So November 3rd is when I'll see the $994, the $123.60 come from the credit limit of the line of credit. Right? I'm going to see that interest come out of that. Only on the 3rd, not before. So that means every single time money goes in, it's going to be principal dollars. Principal dollars. Okay? So $3,200 on the 27th, that's my second paycheck of the month, went into the line, brings the balance down to $35,524, right? Times 9.71%, $9.45, okay? Times that by 5 more days. Between the 27th and the 1st, that's my next bill coming out, right? Which would be the mortgage. So for 5 days at $9.45 is $47.25. Then more money comes out. Haven't gotten another paycheck yet. It's November 1st. Pay my mortgage out of the line of credit, right? So I make a withdrawal back to my checking account. It's the second lien HELOC. Boom. Balance goes to $37,539. 1 day of interest on the first, $9.98. On the second, $9.98. Right? It's the same because the balance stayed the same, so I'm going to pay the same interest costs. And then on the 3rd, right, is when I'll get charged interest. Right? So let's add up the funds. So, let me do that. So 4,078.20 divided by 12, we would have paid what? $339.85, right? That's interest only payment. Doing it the velocity banking way, right? Let's see if there's a difference, right? $9.94 plus $123.60 plus $47.25 plus $9.98 plus $9.98, right? And then I just added another for that day, the 3rd, which probably won't get charged on the 3rd, right? Because you would have already received the statement of what you're going to owe. But I added anyway, $9.98. So we actually pay the $210.73. What's the difference? $339.85 minus $210.73. $129 difference, folks. That's important. Okay, now you're like, wait a minute, Denzel. Wait a minute. You didn't run this. You forgot that, Denzel. The 1,044. How come that didn't come out of the line of credit? Because I ran it through a credit card. Credit cards due on the 3rd. The closing date is the 6th. So as long as I run my bills on a credit card after the 6th of October, so that would mean whatever I spend between October 7th on this card. All right, let's do that real quick. October 7th to November 2nd. Run bills. Right? That's your window, month to month. Between the 7th and the 2nd of any month, you would run bills on this credit card. So we would strategically set up our bill pay. We might have to switch bills around, switch payments around. We can totally do that. It's totally fine. We can make that happen. We would run our bills only within that period. Because if I do that, on November 3rd, I'm not going to owe anything. Why? The closing date already closed. The statement cycle closed for that credit card. So I'm actually not going to owe anything until December 3rd on the card, which means $1,044 stays in the HELOC, right? $1,044 stays in the home equity line of credit. That's income. That makes a difference, ladies and gentlemen. And for doing that, I'm going to get $20.88, right? Which means I would apply that to the balance owed on the card, which means $10.44 minus $20.88. I'm only going to owe on that. $10.23.12 will come out of the line, right? So now you have to ask yourself, okay, if the rate, let's just say the rate is fixed, stays the same at the 9.71%, and in the first month, I get charged $210.73 as opposed to $245, right? In the first month doing Snowball, who paid less interest, right? 245 minus 210.73. There's a $34 difference there. Is this a big difference, Denzel? No. This doesn't excite me. All I'm doing is showing you an example here of somebody forcing velocity banking. Right? This is kind of forcing it. But even when you force it, right, even at a higher rate, did I pay less interest than 7%? I did. Why? Well, 7% on a car loan amortizes not actually 7%. If you did the math, it's actually 26.7% on $11,246.97. The total amount of interest that you would have paid there. And in the first month, I'm paying $245 in interest. In the first month of velocity banking over here, I paid $210.73. So at this point in time, this kind of helps you say, okay, well, here's the next question. If in the first month of doing velocity banking, you pay $210.73, in month 2, will I pay more interest or will I pay less interest? Comment below. Comment more interest, less interest. Right? I want to see that real quick. Again, I'll ask it. If I pay $210.73 in the first month of doing velocity banking, and the second month goes by and I do velocity banking again, am I going to pay more interest that second month? Or am I going to pay less interest that month? What would you say? I'm going to go with less, right? We can run the math to determine that. If I pay less, then could I potentially pay off this $42,000 debt faster than the 23-month cycle that we're dealing with? Right? That would depend. Let's see. Wait for some of you guys. So Rick, less. Samuel, will pay less. Okay. Now, according to Cheryl, we need proof, right? We need to prove that. Okay. So we're going to do our best to prove it. All right, we're going to map out the numbers. Go from there. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button. We got 76 people in the house. Let me know that you're with me, you're getting value from this. I think this is very helpful for those that are pro velocity banking. You've been doing velocity banking. I just had a conversation with a client. Her HELOC rate was originally at like 3.5%, and it jumped all the way to like 9%. And I told her, I said, we need to switch banks. Let's go shop around. Let's get a better rate. All right? Let's get a better rate. All right. So let's go to month 2. And again, we're going to go day by day by day on this. Let's go to month 2. 210.73 added to the balance 37,539 plus 210.73. So now we're here. 37,749. It's November 3rd times 9.71%. $10.04 is how much I'm paying on that card, on that line of credit. So it's the 3rd. I no longer have that card payment, right? No longer got that. So they over here, they still have that payment. So that means their cash flow stays at $1,400. Our cash flow increased, right? Our cash flow is now higher. So that's also what's giving us an advantage here, because I got to the cash flow faster, all right? So November 3rd, and let's look at the calendar. When's our next pay? Our next pay will be November 10th, all right? So November 10th and the 24th. That's our pay period. Mind you, we now have a credit card that we ran $1,044 on. We apply the cashback rewards to the balance, so now it's $1,023.12. But we'll have another $1,044 running in November. But when are we gonna swipe that card? Only between the 7th and the 2nd of any month. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add it here. Another $1,044, so that we can have that ready for us, because that'll be due on December 3rd. Right? So now it's 2,067 minus the 2,088. That's how much I will owe on my credit card, right? Now, that's one credit card that we're using to run bills. There is another thing that we can do with velocity banking, folks, that Snowball, Dave Ramsey steps would forbid, okay? And this is where we can get a 0% credit card. 0% on purchases, right? 0% credit card. 0% purchases. We can get it for like 12 months. So you got a credit limit of 10K, right? All right. With their bills of the $1,044, what we could do is we could look at the bills that they have and see, okay, can we go from monthly to annual? Can we go from monthly to annual? And we would save money on the bill itself, it gets paid in advance up front, the debt would just sit on this card now. So I could I could park expenses into my line of credit, into this other line of credit card, then just pay the monthly minimum payment, which would mean more money staying in the HELOC, which would mean less interest being paid. This is another factor that I often don't go over. I sometimes miss. And the reason behind that with a lot of my case studies is I am dealing with people who are new. So when you see some of my more advanced case studies, you'll see me implement that. So to not create so much confusion here, what I will simply do, right, is all I did was bring that up, but I'm not going to use it to my advantage because I do want to see if 9.71% simple interest, when using the concept, the strategy of dumping income in, all income in, expenses out, will I actually pay this off sooner than the 23-month window, right? And if it ends up being longer, then guess what? Velocity banking doesn't work at that higher rate. And then we would just need to do our homework to find a bank that would give us a lower rate. If we can get below 7, then we're going to have a win. So far, we just showed that at 9.71%, I pay $210.73. If you disagree with my number, please let me know. If you disagree with my math, please let me know and tell me why. Like, I broke down everything. The day's money goes in and the day's money comes out, right? So we showed the credit card, $2,046.24 going to be a running balance. That's going to be owed on December 3rd. We're in November. We have the 10th and the 24th coming up. So there's no bills other than the mortgage between November 3rd and the 10th, right? So we got November 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8, 9. We'll stop at 9, right? November 9th. So 7 days. So we would do 1004 times 7 days. So that's going to be $70.28. Right? So now November 10th comes. Income in. Right? That $70.28 does not get added to the balance yet. Not until December 3rd. All right? Got to be clear about that. So $37,749.73 minus $3,200. So 34,549.73 times 9.71% divided by 365. $9.19 on the 10th. So we looking. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 5 more days. Times 5. That would be $45.95. We're now November 15th. Money needs to come out. How much money? $924, 3 student loan payments, plus $400 for cash bills. So $1,324. 1324 plus 34,549.73. 35,873.73. Okay. Times 9.71% divided by 365. That's going to cost me $9.54. Okay. Meanwhile, once we had gotten to November 7th, we're swiping the card with those other bills, right? Swiping the card. Great. So now it's November 15th. From November 15th onward, we're now going to get charged $9.54. Outside of bills of the credit card, there's nothing else that is due, right? We no longer have the car payment. It's due. We paid our student loans, paid the mortgage already, and we already ran cash bills. So now it's just that 1,044 of bills that's going on this card. So now we have to go from the 15th to the 24th. So 15, get charged interest for that day that we're in. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Right? We don't count 24 because that balance will change. Don't count 24. So 23, 9 days. So 954 times 9 days. $85. $85.89. Okay, great. Then 24th hits. What happens? Another paycheck, right? Comes in. Wonderful. Cool beans. So now I do 35,873.73 minus 3,200. Balance goes down to 32,673.73. Times that, 9.71%. 5 by 365. $8.69 a day. 24, the day we're on. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 30 days in the month of November. December 1st, December 2nd. 9 more days. All right? 869 times 9. 78. 22. Let's add the numbers. Will it be less? Will it be more? 7822 plus 85.89 plus 45.95 plus 70.28. Ooh. Interesting. Do we need to check our numbers? Do we see what happened there? Benjamin said yet less. All right. Nieves said less. Letitia, full of joy, said less. Samuel, you'll pay less. Rick, less. Did anyone say more? I know there's a whole argument because, that's the thing, Cheryl. You mentioned about getting I guess, blocked or something by the other people. It's the way you communicate. You ever think about that? Change your strategy. Right? So, okay, it's not calling out velocity magnitude, just your words. Many others do and are secretly blocked by Christie and CJ Wallace. Viewers don't know the highly skewed view they're allowed to see. Cheryl, change your strategy. Change your strategy. You sound like a very angry person. Nobody wants to deal with you, right? So if all you do all day long is bicker, who are you gonna win? Like, who? Think about conversion. How many more people you think you're gonna convert when you argue versus when you just have a conversation with somebody, right? Think about that. You got to think, how can I just simply present and communicate more efficiently, more better? That's why I'm saying I think you should make videos. I think you should get online. It'll improve your speaking skills, your communication skills, your typing skills, all that. When you start creating content, educate, and improve people's lives. But until then, you're always going to be blocked by people because they don't want to deal with you. Now, me, I could care less. If anybody wants to debate, argue, let's have a conversation. I have no problem. We'll go through the math, line by line, day by day. I don't mind. I don't have a problem. I'm very, very comfortable in my own skin, right? I have no problem doing that. If you use profanity, if you curse, if you try to like degrade people and do all this stuff, then obviously you're going to get blocked. Cheryl, you haven't done that on my channel, so therefore I haven't blocked you. Others I have blocked in the past because they curse, right? They don't know how to use the English language in a more efficient way. So all they know is curse words. All they know how to do is attack, right? You wonder why there's so many problems in the country today, because literally people on this side don't know how to communicate with people on this side. And people on this side don't know how to communicate with people on this side. So of course you're going to get conflict. So that's the issue, right? So let's run that back. We all thought, including myself, we all thought we would pay less interest, right? We all thought we'd pay less interest. Now, if you want to know why more interest was charged in the month of November, simply go back and look at the timeline. We see timing is key when you're doing velocity banking as well. Timing is key. When you make that chunk and how much of the chunk that you make is very key, right? So it's that's key. October 14th, we went from October 14th only to November 3rd. How many days is that? 7, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Only 20 days. All right, so this was about a 20-day period, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody do the math on that, from October 14th to November 3rd. That's 20 days. From November 3rd to when? To December 2nd, right? How many days is that? More than 20 days, right? It's more than 20 days. So when we see that, okay, so 7, 14, 21, 31. I think it was 31 days. From November 3rd to December 2nd. Check my math. I think it's 31 days. So 31 days was about $280.34 in interest. So now, what do we need to do? Right? What do we need to do now? We need to go back to Snowball. How much interest did they pay in the second month? Right? How much did they pay? So let's share my screen again. Let's come over here. Zoom in on that bad boy. Whoops. Just so that everybody can clearly see this. Second month, $234.56. So in the second month, that snowball paid less interest than Velocity Banking, despite even using the credit card, which is floating expenses at 0%. So in order for me to force this strategy to work, what would I need to do? What did I bring up earlier about another credit card at 0% and you throw your bills on there and you let it sit for 12 months? That's the only way that you'll pay less interest than $234.56 in the second month, right? So in the first month, Velocity Banking had a bit of a boost. It was only about like a $37 boost. It wasn't that crazy, right? So $234.56 minus that from $280. So Debt Snowball paid $45 less in interest in the second month. So now Cheryl should be the one cheering in the comments right now, right? And she's like, you see, I told you, right? So now, notice Rick, full of joy. Who else was it? Who else said last? Benjamin. Notice how you're like, oh, wait. But it's only, I tricked you. I tricked you because the first month was kind of a half month. It was only 20 days. So if it was apples to apples, if it was 31 days of interest the first month and then 31 days of the second month or 30 days, because, you know, the months are sometimes longer and shorter. If you did it more of that kind of a comparison, then yes, there would be less interest the following month. And now I'll prove it by going to the third month, right? So we'll look at the third month of Velocity Banking. And now comment, okay, now will we pay less interest in the third month than in the second month doing Velocity Banking? Put less interest, type less interest, or type more interest for the third month. Go ahead and comment that, right? We're going to take this to the whiteboard. I'm going to erase this because I need space. And I'm waiting for your comments. I'm waiting for your comments to come on in. All right. Look. 280. 34 plus the balance. 32,673.73. So now it's December 3rd, right? December 3rd. And then look, I even messed up. Look where I messed up. I forgot to take out the mortgage payment, right? You guys didn't catch me on that. See how easy you can make a mistake? All right, so let's fix that. Because that's even more interest now. That's even more interest now. All right. And this is my point. Some of us are forcing Velocity Banking. And there's no need. But this is why I'm doing this. Because I've made this mistake personally. I've made this mistake. I just made the damn mistake just now. Right? So, come back to November 24th. Income went in, right? There's no other bills due between the 24th and the 30th of the month. Whatever bills are due, it's being sent onto the credit card, right? Being sent on there. So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, right? There's 30 days in November. So 7 days of 869. 869 times 7 days is $60.83. So let's fix that. Right? $60.83. Right? December 1st, 2015 comes out. 32,673.73 plus 2015. We're now at 34,688.73. Right? So December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, right? We'll times that 9.71%. 922 times 3 days. $27.68. $27.68 plus $60.83 plus 85.89 plus 45.95 plus 70. 28. $290. All right. December 3rd, 290 plus 34,688.73. Here's our ending balance, 34,979.36. So that's December 3rd. Let's look at what the ending balance is on our debt snowball side, so we can see the difference. Like, okay, yeah, we paid more interest, but let's look at where the balance of the vehicle is at, right? To see, is there maybe a difference there, and that's something that we can pay attention to, right? So in the first month, it's down to 40,211, and the time frame, everything is being based off the 14th. So that's a cycle, right? We're making the payments on the 14th of every month, and along with the extra payment, right? So 38,000 in the second month. So technically second month of velocity banking, I'm at 34,979.36, but you also have to add my credit card balance of 2,046.24. All right, so I'm going to write that on the board real quick as you're looking at the screen, because we have to pull money out of the HELOC to pay that credit card. So 34,979.36 plus $2,046.24. We're at $37,025.60. So snowball's at 38,411.78. I'm currently at 37,025.60 despite paying more interest in the second month. Is that clear? So look at the balance, the ending balance. That's another thing. That's another metric that we're measuring here, right? It's another metric. So I wrote it. Here's our ending balance on December 3rd, right? And let me make sure that's accurate. I'm not sure if I added the interest on that number. I think I did. Let me make sure. So it was 27.68 plus $60.83 plus 85.89 plus 45.95 70.28 290 plus 34.688.73. Okay, yeah, so I added the interest into that number for the month of November. On December 3rd, our credit card's due. So you got to pay $2,046.24. Leaves you with an ending balance of $37,260, right? So we paid a total of $290 and some change in interest. We're going to go a third month now, right? Third month. Now, before I do that, let me just take a breather here. We got 78 people in the house, 59 likes. So that means a lot of people have been getting value from this, right? If this has been extremely valuable, because this is exactly how velocity banking is actually working. A lot of my case studies, I'm doing I'll run like an average, and I basically do short math, quick math, and my average is always a higher interest than what I'm illustrating. This is showing what we actually would pay in interest if we did everything correctly. All right. Dylan says, I have a detailed tracker. I'd be glad to share with any one of my results. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I had another client do that. They made a spreadsheet with a simple interest line of credit, and it shows the math of money in, money out. So you can have the columns. So I wonder if that's what you have, Dylan, with the columns of like $400 payment, $500 payment. And it's like every month, and it would go like all the different months, and you just kind of plug and play. I use the bank, pay off my debt faster. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure who Victor's talking to. I don't know if you're talking to me about that. Okay, that was from earlier. Okay. Yeah, I call people out. I mean, if you're going to, come at me, like, let's have a conversation. Because I think that's the best way to settle conflict. Let's talk about it. All right? You don't need to pull the guns out. I don't need to pull the guns out. All right? This is how I learn. Maybe I came late, but I did not hear him call out anyone in a bad way. Yeah, no. Like, I'm not calling anyone out in a bad way. Like, I've had 2 debates with 2 other YouTubers, and if you go back and look at those collaborations, I think they were super peaceful. Super peaceful. Right? So Cheryl says, I suspect Denzel hasn't blocked me because he is a licensed insurance agent in the state regulators and insurance companies. Contract would consider it misleading advertising to block critics. So the answer is no, Cheryl. I haven't blocked you because you haven't cursed. And you don't put any random, weird links on my comments. So if anyone puts links under the comments section, it automatically blocks that. That's just how I have it set up. So it just automatically blocks that. If you curse, use profanity, it'll automatically block that. Right? If you try to spam, if you try to promote something, it automatically blocks that. These are just automatic things. Like, you think I'm looking through every single comment on my YouTube channel? Like, I just don't. Like, I don't have that capacity to. The channel has grown. where there's like maybe 20, 30 plus comments coming in every single day. So whenever I see like really good engaging comments or questions come in, like I pay attention and I'll respond to that. So no, that is not the reason. Thank you, AM. And so this is where you can't count on math, logic, creative, resource, personal comments. Again, Cheryl, I don't think anybody called you out or was rude to you or anything like that. If anything, you have a track record, right? We can go to the comments. Tanya, velocity banking can create cash flow for those that don't have it. Velocity banking strategy, not everyone has to agree or like it, but living in the freedom it helps create is all I need. Yeah, love it. AM, again, what? When did he resort? Okay, so Rick says from here on out, less interest. Okay, Rick, less interest. AM says less interest. Samuel would be less. I normally pay at least. Okay, not just I want people to know the facts that many people can't. Okay, yeah. Okay, all right. We're going back and forth. Let me just run through it. Thank you, AM. Yeah, like if you're not a client with me, or even if you are a client with me, I'm very upfront where I'm like, do not rely on my math at face value. Like, you need to run the math. Let's have two brains working together so we can get to a destination. We get to a result. That's extremely important. I can't tell you how much fun I have working with clients over the phone. We're running the math, and then they email me back. It's like, hey, I think I just run the math, and I think I did better than you. And I'm like, probably because I usually overestimate. I love when that happens. When it's the reverse, I'm like, oh, shoot. Yes, I made a mistake. Great. I'm glad you caught that. Let's keep going. Okay. So, got you. Yeah, so Dylan is saying, you guys can exchange emails, have a conversation. Because, yeah. I won't say nothing. I'm just letting the comments read itself. Just letting it. Julian, we appreciate you. Thank you. James also says less interest. All right, we're going to prove that. I end up paying before the bill instead of waiting for it to be due, messing things up. Correct, Mia, right? So if you're using a credit card to run your bills and you also have a line of credit like a HELOC attached, and if you're pulling from your line of credit too early to pay off that credit card that isn't charging you interest, you're now paying more interest on the HELOC. So timing is important too, right? Keep that in mind, Mia. That's I'm glad you're noticing that, and that's how you can improve. Okay, Benjamin, I'm glad you showed how timing is key, not only when we chunk, but also on how velocity banking allows you to start building cash, building assets as you pay off debt quickly. Love it. Thank you, AM. Okay, lovely. Are you guys ready? Third month? Are we going to pay less interest or are we going to pay more interest? Let's see. Hope you're getting a lot of value from this. We got 81 people in the house, 63 likes. If you're getting value, hit the like button. Really appreciate all of the support. So now it's December 3rd. We already paid December's mortgage payment. That's done. Let's see when our next paycheck is. So the 24th. So it would be, our next paycheck is December 8th and the 22nd. So those are our next two paycheck dates. That's clear. We have a balance owed of $37,025.60, right? Going into the month of December. So 37,025.60 times 9.71% divided by 365. $9.84 a day, right? So 984, and so we're going to count. So we got December 3rd, the day that we're on, December 4th, 5th, 6th, 7, 5 days, 984, 24. Oh, God. Hope y'all didn't catch that comment. My fiance just texted me. I hope y'all didn't see that. Lord have mercy. So 984 times 3. Nope. I'm getting all distracted now because my fiance texted me. Sorry, y'all. I'm getting all distracted now. I'm messing myself up. Let me count that again. December 3rd, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5 days. Yep. 984 times 5 days. $49.20. Right? $49.20. It's December 8th. All right. And we're getting a paycheck. Minus 3,200. So 37,250 minus 3,200. 33,825.60. December 8th. We got bills coming up soon, right? So we need to figure out what's the borrowing cost per day on that balance. 9.71% divided by 365. $8.99. Okay. So 338256, $8.99 a day. We're December 8th. Income went in. Again, I'm swiping the card again, 1044, right? So let me illustrate that for you guys so you can see it so we're not getting lost. So that got paid, right? So 1044 again. And then minus $20.88. 1023.12. 1023.12 is what. So 1044 ran on the card, $20 paid it down. That's for the month of December. We're clear there, right? Come over here. 33,825.60 is December 8th. So now from the 8th to the 15th. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 7 more days. So 899 times 7 days, 62.93. Boom. December 15th. Expenses have to come out. $924 plus the $400. So $1,324. Right? Clear? $1,324 plus 33,825.60. So we're at 35,149.60 times 9.71% divided by 365. Boom. $9.35 from the 15th to the 22nd. We're going to count from there because that's our next payday. And as of December 15th, all our bills on the credit card is running there. The mortgage got paid. Student loans, all that's done. The cash only bill, that's done. Now it's just the last paycheck of the month coming in. So we count the day that we're on, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Don't count 22. That's going to be a different balance. 7 days. 935 times 7 days. $65.45. Right? It's now December 22nd, and my last paycheck of the month goes in there. Okay? $35,149.60 minus $3,200. Balance $31,949.60 times 9.71% divided by 365. 8.49. So we're now going to go from December 3rd to January 3rd and count, but we'll stop on the 1st because that's our mortgage comes out again, right? So December 22nd, count the day that you're on for $8.49. December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. All right, did I count that right? 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 31. 10 more days. 31. 10 more days. 849 times 10 more days. 8490. Okay? So now it is January 1st. $2,015 has to come out. $31,949.60 plus 2015. $33,964.60 times 9.71%. 365. 903. For how many days? Just 2. The 1st and the 2nd. Right? And we can we'll just do the 1st and the 2nd, right? Times 2. $18.07. January 3rd. Do I owe the credit card? No. As long as I did not run the bills between the 3rd and the 6th, right? If I waited in December until December 7th, I won't have to pay anything on that card for January 3rd. This will get due on February 3rd, along with January's expenses. Okay? So we're going to leave it at the ending balance of $33,964.60. So let me add another $9.03. $9.03. So it's really $27.10 plus $84.90 plus $65.45 plus $62.93. Boom. In the 3rd month, we pay $240.38. Okay. So that is quite a ways down from $290 down to $240.38. Y'all saw that? So now, share the screen. Where are we at in month 3? Uh-oh. In month 3, it's They're paying $224.07, but notice the balance is $36,601.96. My balance is at $33,964.60 plus 240. So 240.38 plus 33,964.60. So I end up around 34,204.98. So I'm at 34,204.98. They're at 36,601.96. So even though that snowball's paying less interest so far, right? Or let's tally it up. If we look at the cumulative interest, 703.63, and we look at velocity banking the first 3 months, it was 210.73 plus 290 plus 240.38, 741.11. So it's neck and neck, guys. Neck and neck. Which at this point, if I wasn't talking, right, I probably could have went about maybe 6 to 9 months, almost 12 months out, right? If I was just doing it myself. And what I'll do is I'll make another video where I literally just map out every single month of velocity banking here. My current assumption, my gut feeling is that I'm going to get a very, very similar result of paying off a $42,000 car note in a HELOC at 9.71%. I think I'll get to 23 months or less. I don't think it'll be above 23 months. I think it'll be neck and neck, or maybe a month, 2 months off. That's my gut feeling. But I'm going to make a video and go all the way through, right? Because it's going to take a lot of time for me to literally go month by month, day by day. I'm going to go all the way through, show the math, everything, so we can make an educated decision. But from surface level here, you're putting in all this work. I would say that if anyone is illustrating velocity banking, where you're using a higher rate tool, like a much higher rate tool, to pay off smaller amortized debts, right? Then I'd say, okay, we're kind of forcing it. There's not going to be so much of a gain here. We need to add other elements like a credit card to run bills and maybe another credit card to park expenses for like 12 months, and then we can make a real difference here, right? Until then, my analysis of this situation, it is case by case, but my analysis of this is that we're forcing velocity banking at 9.71%. Let's just go get a HELOC at an intro rate of 4.99, 5.99, 6.99. Even if it was the same rate as 7%, we can make the argument that 7% simple interest versus 7% amortized on that car loan, I'm going to pay less interest over here, which means I'm going to get the debt paid off faster, right? So let's look at some questions, right? Let's look at some questions. Okay. Denzel, you add in the third twice. You added it on the second month and you added it in December too. Is that what I did? Okay. So basically I put velocity banking at a disadvantage. That's basically what you're saying. December 3rd. You're right. I think I did because I counted it in December 3rd and then it looks like I did it again. Right. So maybe I'm a couple dollars less. So thank you for pointing that out. Velocity banking is great for those of us who don't have any cash flow when our income is less than our expenses because the rental had no income for a month. Okay, now this is very, very good. Very good point. So now, Cheryl, I think you'll get value from this, and those others that don't agree with velocity banking, we're now going to look at velocity banking more multi-dimensional, lot of other layers. So aside from potentially going faster, right, in eliminating the debt, let's just talk about how life can happen in the process of eliminating debt. Let's just discuss that for a second. If you're sending 100% of your cash flow towards debt elimination, and then you have a rental, and then that thing goes vacant, or there's an issue, what's going to happen, Cheryl? Right? Like let's think this through. If I use 100% of my cash flow every single month towards debt elimination, and then I have an unexpected expense come up that's more than $1,000 in my emergency fund that Dave Ramsey tells me, it's more than that, and I got a rental, I got to replace an AC unit, or I got to do this. What do you have to do? Borrow money. You have to. You can borrow from a friend. You can borrow from family. You can borrow from a stranger. Borrow from the bank. What is my alternative? Let things go late? Let my bills go late? We have to process this. So where velocity banking can come in is just simply showing us how to be better borrowers. If I'm going to go into debt, what's the least amount of interest that I can pay to cover this unexpected expense, emergency, whatever the case may be? So I'm going to erase the board here, and we're going to, just really touch on the other elements that are involved here that really help us in situations that are unforeseen, unexpected, when you're on that journey of, becoming debt free. Right? So velocity banking helps with the unforeseen. It's like I could be eliminating debt, and then at the same time, if I got $100,000 credit limit and I'm, 3 months into velocity banking, the balance is down to 30,000-ish and some change, and then I have an unexpected $5,000 expense, I could just run it through the line of credit and then continue to pay that down, versus the person that's 3 months into velocity banking over here making $1,400. And if they only have $1,000 in their savings account, or $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, guess what? Their whole savings gets drained. They still don't have enough money. And just like any other average American, they're going to borrow. They're going to have to borrow. Now, if I could just teach and educate people how to be better borrowers, how to be more efficient at borrowing, because it's so easy to say, don't borrow money, don't do this, avoid debt like the plague. It's so easy to say that, but then go into actual real life application in the world when you're dealing with the average American who has husband, wife, couple kids, 1 or 2 kids are in college, they have debt, parent plus student loans. Okay, so there's debt. Now you're making payments. Mom has student loans. She's making payments. Okay, you needed to go into debt to better your education, right? That was required. Then, if you don't want to rent and keep paying an increase in rent, what do? You go into debt to get a mortgage, right? And so now you have a fixed mortgage payment at a fixed rate, and you're hedging against inflation. You're hedging against rental costs increasing over the years. So you went into debt for that. And then once you got out of college, or while you were in college, you went into more debt to finance a vehicle so you can have this car to take you from point A to point B, right? And point B to point A, right? And back. So you finance that. So now you're 30, 40 years old, and you have all these debts, and now you're in a position where, okay, I'm no longer accumulating more debt, right? Now I'm in the process of eliminating and paying debts down. What's the most efficient way to go about doing that? There's a lot of different ways. Sure, you can make the extra payments, but the moment life hits you, an unforeseen event, you're going to have to go back into more debt. And so there's not a whole lot of financial content creators discussing that piece of what happens when life happens. And I'm on this debt elimination strategy, extra payments, debt avalanche. I'm sending 100% of my cash flow here. Maybe I'm sending money to a 401k. Maybe I have a couple months worth of expenses, 3 to 6 months, but then an unforeseen event comes and it drains my entire savings. So once I drain my entire savings, now what? I have to stop paying off debt to build up my savings again. So now you're getting hit with all that interest. Okay, so velocity banking is that little wedge, that gap that really helps us with the unforeseen, allows us to access capital at very low interest costs, as opposed to what most Americans do. They get the payday loans, they go to Amscot, they go to a personal loan, right? They go get a personal loan at 15% with Lending Tree and Prosper, all the marketing ones, or they borrow on a credit card at 29%, Cheryl. And hey, that's not efficient. But if I had a line of credit at 9%, 8%, 7%, and I can bring that borrowing cost down to like less than 4%, that's a game changer. So that's another dimension. It has nothing to do with the speed of which debt pays down. That can help me actually go faster because I know how to deal with an unforeseen event and then come back to eliminating debt at the same time. So that's huge. That I'm not going to go too deep, but velocity banking essentially helps with the unforeseen, helps you be a better borrower, right? And I think velocity banking is a pre-qualifier for WLI, whole life insurance, IBC, infinite banking concept, become your own banker, right? Because if you understand how to leverage and use lines of credits effectively and efficiently, right, and then you're building your income and you're creating a gap between what you make and what you spend, so you increase this cash flow over time. Eventually, you'll learn about whole life insurance, cash value life insurance, how you can build that up, fund your own banking system. Instead of borrowing from the banks, you would borrow against the cash values. You literally are borrowing from yourself. You borrow your own money at an interest rate that you can create positive arbitrage from over a long period of time, right? So that's a unique factor as well that can come into play. And then if you're a business owner, potentially write off the interest that you would borrow from yourself. Meanwhile, you're earning an interest rate on the money as if you never borrowed it in the first place. So it creates a wash, creates an offset. Right, so I think these are just some huge benefits here. It really sets the scene for, I think, an overall successful financial, personal lifestyle for a household. And then again, they'll always have velocity banking in their back pocket, right? They'll just always have it there. Market crash comes, they now have access to capital. They can jump on an investment. They have options. The more options we give our clients and the people watching, I think the more clarity you'll have to make a decision on an investment to increase your income, increase your financial position overall. So with that, let's look at some Q&A, and we're gonna wrap up. This is, I went really, really long. So again, talked about mistakes I've made, talked about how to improve. We went through a case study. Don't force velocity banking. Before you do velocity banking, let's go find the best rates according to your financial situation. And guess what? And if you have loans at like 1%, 2%, like really low, you might want to consider, should I actually pay this debt off early? let it sit there, take my cash flow, and go 10x my income? What if I doubled my income, 2x to 10x my income, in the same amount of time frame it would take me to get out of debt, and then I can just stroke a check, pay everything off in one shot? That's what I did with my own finances. I was $30,000 in debt, right, roughly. And instead of paying off debt faster, I actually increased my income. I put all my cash flow, all my income into building a business and helping people. And then I was able to 10x my income in a 6 to 9 month period. Went from $2,000 to doing like a $20,000 a month. Once I had like 2 months of that, I literally just paid everything off cash. So I basically snowballed, right? Just paid everything cash off in one shot, right? And then became debt free, then transitioned from velocity banking, transitioned to becoming my own bank. So I designed 2 whole life insurance policies that I've been funding the last 5 years. I got well over multiple 6 figures in cash value that's growing at a guaranteed compounded rate. Comes with the life insurance death benefit, right? Comes with a tax-free death benefit in case anything happens to me. In case I become terminally ill, there's a living benefit, tax-free payout to my family, myself, to cover any medical costs or expenses. Then there's the living benefit of the cash value that I've been leveraging the last 5 years to make investments, increase my income, better my financial situation overall. So multi-layered here, multi-layered. Velocity banking is not just about who's going faster. It's also really just helping with the overall situation of that particular person that I'm working with, right? So Julie says you never use all the line of credit. Correct, we didn't. Well under 66%, right? Cheryl says best rates equals debt restructuring. That's a good point. That's what we're doing. Velocity banking to whatever term you want to use. Refinance, restructure. I'm not going to really argue terms. We're moving debt from one location to another, paying less interest, right? Retaining capital, retaining the cash flow. Velocity banking is just a method. Not everyone should use it. I agree. I think that there's some pregame work, right? Absolutely right. He says, my mom tried it and it didn't work well, right? Same. My mom did it a couple of times, made a few mistakes. I said, look, we need to slow down. We need to build up your financial discipline first, stewardship first. We need to learn how to save first consistently. Then we can incorporate leverage, right? I fixed her mistakes, let her continue the way she had been doing things before velocity banking. Good job. Did the same thing. AM, we're on the same track here. Right? You just said exactly what Denzel just said. Right? Yep, Cheryl. Yep, boom. Prove my point. Right? So look at that, Cheryl. After spending 2 hours with me live, notice how we're somewhat getting close together. Who knows? We might even shake hands one day. You never know. Right? Solving problems. Right? We're resolving conflict. Hey, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Right? So this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for tuning in. Action steps. If you're someone that's struggling, negative cash flow, zero cash flow, paycheck to paycheck, or $50, $100 a month cash flow, very low cash flow, you don't save money, you don't invest, you're not good with money, you waste money, you blow it, you don't have a good budget in place, you don't have a good read on your numbers, I have a ministry of finance called Finance Geek Ministry. You go in there, you sign up, it's completely free. You're going to get a course, you get a private community, and you get to hang out with me 2 times a month live to ask me questions, build your discipline, and we start building the building blocks one by one by one by one by one by one. We may never do velocity banking. That's totally fine, right? We're just building the building blocks within Finance Geek Ministry. You come, you show up, you do the work. We will have a blast together. We will improve your finances, right? So that's for people who are struggling. For people who watch my videos, you're doing well financially, you make good money, you have good positive cash flow, trying to make some tweaks, trying to figure out some moves, let's jump on a call. We can do some consulting calls. You join my coaching program. We go to distance, help you become a millionaire, help you become a multi-six-figure earner. Whatever it is we're trying to solve for in your finances, that's something that myself and I got a team around me, people that I work with, partner with, other creators that can solve for different pieces. Taxes, finance charges, leveraging, credit, business, 10x, right? Management, stewardship, contribution, right? So boom, we can work together. Click the link below, check out the different site, go to my website, check out my services. We'll have a blast. If you're someone that makes a lot of money, right? You're doing really well and you want to be a giver, you want to contribute, right? You can reach out to me directly and you get to know my system and how I'm serving people on the negative cash flow side. Maybe you want to be a part of that. Maybe you want to train people. Maybe you want to, put people in my ecosystem or put an event together of some sort that is just pure giving. I have an element for that as well. You just email me, you reach out directly. We'll have a blast, right? So thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Great work. Thank you so much. Green, thanks. You rock. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. God bless. And we'll be talking soon. Thank you so much.